Hey, everybody. I'm Dr. Jason Cohen. Welcome to Gross Anatomy.
I'm Lauren Taylor.
I'm David Wallace, under Mifflin Paper.
And there you go. Exactly. And that's why, wait, what is that? What's David Wallace?
You've heard of David Wallace. You've heard of The Office.
I know.
The most popular American show probably ever, next to Cheers, maybe.
Wow.
Well, Friends, I guess.
Friends,
Nice.
yeah.
But Cheers as well, yeah.
Is that your favorite show too?
Oh my goodness, of course. It
Yeah.
has to, I mean, A, it is, and B, it has to be. It's a life-changing
Actually,
phone call.
You know, I think we could get. I have so many directions I want to take this in, and probably even get into trouble. But maybe I'll save that stuff for a little bit later.
I have time.
The real reason I wanted you on the podcast is we're both bearded. We're just both bearded men, and that's the only reason that I wanted you on the podcast. And that's it.
I had to shave this a little while back, and then I said, "No, I'm not shaving it anymore. I gotta match the good doc."
And there you go.
But yours, gray.
Mine's way grayer than yours. I noticed there.
When I get it going, it becomes fuller beard, like it was this summer. It's quite gray.
Yeah, when I met you, you were very rabbinical.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. I might, I'm looking for a photo on my of how insane I look this summer.
Well, speaking of The Office, though, was before you were on the show, because you weren't on the show from the get-go, right?
Correct. I started. Yeah. I did one episode the second season, the third season, and then by the fourth, really the fifth season, and the fifth and sixth, I was on it like almost every other episode. Right. But it slowly built.
Yeah. And before you were on it, were you probably can't tell me the truth, but were you actually a fan of the show? Were you aware of the show pretty well before you even were on it? Was it something that you were watching?
I can tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Excuse me. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had not actually seen the English version. I heard about it. Heard it was great, but I had only seen the U.S. version. And it wasn't like I had seen every episode, but I had definitely seen a number of episodes, and obviously it was super funny. I didn't know anybody on the show. I mean, I knew a couple, I didn't know them personally, but no, it's a crazy, quick little story. So the casting woman, my patron saint, I call her, Allison Jones, who's easily, arguably, like the best comedy cast, and she now does dramas and stuff, but primarily the best comedy casting director out there. And she had tried to hire. So I tried to act out of college. It didn't go that well. I stopped. I ended up at Merrill-Lynch, which I loved. Was there for 10 years.
But you did the Groundlings, right?
I did that. Yeah, that was part of like my training, or what I studied acting with a guy from a place called the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York for a few years, came out to LA. And as I was sort of trying to get parts, actually Jennifer Coolidge, Stifler's mom.
Stifler's mom, and now White Lotus too, right?
Now White Lotus. We had become friends. And she's like, Buckley, you gotta go to the Groundlings. You gotta go to the Groundlings. And I didn't for a couple of years, but then I finally said, okay, I guess I should go. And it was phenomenal. It was so fun. And I was funny like half the time. But I was in class with Melissa McCarthy, who could do anything and was the funniest person I ever seen in my life. Everything she did, I would just burst out laughing. But then also her now husband, many years, Ben Falcone, he was in class. Air Marshal John, there from Bridesmaids. And Dax Shepard. I think he has a podcast also. I'm not sure.
He does. He's always asking me to be on his, but I'm just too busy, So yeah,
I hear you. Yeah. Me too.
There you go.
I'm doing Doc Cohen's. I don't need that armchair quarterback thing. but it was funny. And then a couple other people, actually, another guy, Nat Fax, and he ended up winning an Oscar for co-writing that Descendants movie, the Clooney Hawaii movie.
Didn't he write the movie? Actually, a kind of a movie, The Way Back. Did you ever see that movie?
Also, yeah, also did that one. Yeah,
I love that movie.
I do too.
He was, and it was funny. So a bunch of funny people. Melissa being like the Michael Jordan, and everybody else like just guys who were pretty funny, and girls who were pretty funny. But she was just incredible. Anyway, so so I was there.
How long were you there for?
I was there over the, and you take a class and then you get up to the next level and there's a waiting period. So it's over the course of like 2 years. And I, whether it was a mistake or not, when it got time, there were 2 separate times I was supposed to do the final, what they call the lab class, where you go in, it's 12 weeks, you're writing material. And, at the end of that, there's a show and you might get picked to be in the Sunday company. And I have a great friend in Texas who was an actor and who was starting to direct movies and stuff. And but both those times he was making a small independent movie. He's like, Buckley, I need you, man. You got to help me. And which I did. So I never sort of took the opportunity to potentially make the Sunday company.
You were never one of the like full-time groundlingers.
No, and maybe I would have. I was as funny as a lot of the guys, but not nearly on the level of like the Saturday Night Live people or Melissa.
Right.
Is the Sunday company? Is that when like someone from SNL comes to like watch? Is that like you?
Some people get spotted out of there. Somebody got spotted out of there and ended up on SNL, but the Sunday company you do. For like a year and a half. And then the big thing is, do you get picked for the Friday, Saturday night company, which they call the main company. Okay. So it's I don't know how many people, get picked percentage wise. And the other thing that's like so great about the Groundlings is a lot of people, they realize I'm not a performer, but I'm a phenomenal writer. Like a lot of people who are writing for different, TV shows and stuff. Were there, but they're just not on the show. They're writing the show.
They're writing they're there performing at the Groundlings, though.
Performing at the Groundlings and writing their own skits, be it for the Sunday or the Saturday, if they make it to call it the Saturday show. But then it's like, they're just, they're not Will Ferrell or Melissa or Kristen Wiig or Parnell. Right. There's so many like incredibly funny people. But they're great writers and they're pretty funny, but more importantly, they're great writers. So they get picked up by a show, 30 Rock, whatever show, and they're writing.
Were you always a comedy person or is that?
I thought I was going to be James Dean.
You look like James Dean. You look like a cross between like Pitt, James Dean, and Clark Gable, I think. Yeah,
I get that every day. Standing in Starbucks, you know something, buddy? You know who you look like? But no, I had seen East of Eden, like one of his only 3 movies one day. And this is going back, 40 something years. And so it wasn't like his picture was everywhere and people knew who he was, like how Elvis and Marilyn and James Dean and Brando and all those, such in the public's mind. I just watched it and I was like, oh my, and like the movie was incredible. And I remember I called my dad at his office. I was like, who, Dad, you know this guy, you ever heard of this guy, James Dean? This guy's incredible. And he just starts laughing. Yeah. And yeah. So that started it. I started doing plays in high school and thought I was gonna.
Oh, so you saw East of Eden in high school, and that's what turned you.
It was the summer of my freshman year, summer between freshman and sophomore year, and so then I did my first little play sophomore year. We had moved from Boston down to South Florida because I was also a golfer. That was my my sport, so I started doing some plays. And
you became
it was funny. That was around
the theater guy.
I was a theater guy, but also an incredible jock. golf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were like, I think you know that teen.
I lettered in
High
golf.
School Musical. They based High School Musical off of you, right?
Yes, off of the guy who he wasn't torn between the musical and football.
Right.
It was golf.
There you go.
But it was funny because it was around the time, and you're in high school, and I mean it's so before the internet and all that stuff. Like I'd go to all kinds of movies, and but Ordinary People had come out, which was just so incredible. But then also Sean Penn was becoming Sean Penn, like the original movie, not even the remotely the same story, but same title, Bad Boys, which he did, and then that movie Taps with Tim Hutton and Tom Cruise and Sean Penn, and then of course Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, who's this guy's? He's like unbelievable. So that was also sort of an inspiration.
So Sean Penn and James Dean, not Brando. Like for me, it was as a kid, it was Cary Grant and Brando were kind of the two actors that I would have wanted to be. For you, it was James Dean and Sean Penn.
And I discovered Brando and Cary Grant in college, I guess. Definitely Brando.
Yeah.
I mean that was, and I started seeing some of Brando's movies and obviously saw the next two, which is crazy. He only made 3 movies, James Dean.
Yeah. Could you name them, Lauren?
I think there's Rebel Without a Cause, right? East of Eden, and then is the last one Giant? Is that what?
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is such an epic, insane movie, and like his start to finish, his performance. I mean, he probably was there for an Oscar, although I think he died before Giant came out.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think he was riding somewhere like after. I don't know, after on the set, like from somewhere to somewhere. Yeah, I think
he was out in Palm Springs and Roadster. He was a big car guy, and just had a horrible accident.
It wasn't off of the PCH. Why did I think it was the PCH? No,
I'm pretty sure it was sort of out towards Palm Springs.
It's I've actually driven by it. They still have like a memorial up, but it's some random road. Yeah. I don't remember where it was.
And then
I don't know if it's a 10. I think it was like Route 66.
Oh, right. So when you went to college, you went thinking I'm going to be a theater guy in college?
Well, and they probably wouldn't even let me apply now, but so I went to Stanford. They'd laugh at my board scores now, I think. But that was then. They were letting in, as I like to say, guys like Lenny of Mice and Men.
Right.
Yeah, okay, that's a nice rabbit. Or whatever he says. So
my wife and I often refer to that my kid, my middle daughter, when she was younger, we were at this birthday party that had a petting zoo, and my middle daughter was, sure enough, she was trying to have Mice and Men this rabbit that I think before it was right at its last gate, it was about to die. And I think it turned and took a chunk out of my daughter's cheek. So we had to run with her and take her to the plastic surgeon. But we always say that my daughter Hannah tried to have Mice and Men this rabbit. But
they both survived. So that's good.
Both survived. And luckily I knew a plastic surgeon who was willing to suture her up on a Saturday.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Benefits of the trade.
Exactly.
Some people.
Yeah. So you went to Stanford.
But so I went to Stanford, but I knew I wasn't like, I was like, I don't even know. There was a theater program, but it wasn't like I was going to, it wasn't like, you're getting to go to Juilliard. So, I studied other things. I was technically a poli-sci major. But I studied some economics. I studied French. I did semester or trimester. It's a trimester system over in France, and took some time off. I was down here trying to get acting parts for a couple of trimesters. And I was also on the golf team my first year and a half. I was like recruited because I had been a pretty good junior golfer, and then everything clicked the summer between junior and senior year. Not even the entire summer, just July and August. Excuse me, but everything clicked I call it my Linsanity moment, like when Justin Lin for the Knicks was going crazy, and like for 6 weeks he was like the best player in the world. It was something like that, and everything clicked, and so then it culminated for golf fans out there. They'll know this. Like I qualified for the U.S. Amateur, and there were like 4 of us in high school that qualified that year, 4 or 5. So that put me on the radar of a lot of schools, and then I went back to just being like the regular, pretty good junior golfer that I was. Like everything, like I had sold my soul for 6 weeks or something, and then I just went back to that. It was good enough to get me in, and then so I was on the team there for
that's amazing,
about a year and a half. And I mean, like I was like number 12 on the team, and occasionally guys would say, "You really qualified for the amateur, huh? That's amazing!" Like they just couldn't believe it. And it was
you were on steroids for that little brief period.
Yeah, it was lightning in a bottle for that day. But I did plays, and then after that, after I graduated, I moved to New York and studied acting for 3 years, and then came out and to Los Angeles. And I wasn't really super properly motivated. I don't know. I was getting in my own way, really, with sort of negative self-talk, actually, for a number of years. So I consequently had like single A baseball success. You know, occasionally I'd get hired, etc. But for like some small part. But Allison, circling all the way back to Allison Jones, was like my fan. You know, she was like, "You're pretty funny, Buckley. You're pretty funny." And she's also originally from Boston, where I'm originally from. But that was so
had
that
she seen you in
ultimately.
Something?
What was that?
Had she seen you in something?
No, just auditions.
Right.
Just auditions. I had auditioned, and she put me in a couple of little, couple of things, a couple of pilots, like not as a regular, but just like some guy with one scene or a few lines, and one show she kept calling me in, and they didn't end up hiring me for a new show that didn't end up going anywhere at the time. But so jump ahead, I stop my incredible acting career that no one has, and I end up at Merrill-Lynch, and it's my wife, who she's the one that said, "You just got to get away from all this, just like get away from it for a while, because it's not." So like
you were already married.
We weren't married at the time, but ultimately, yeah, it's.
But you were dating at
ultimately
the time.
My wife, who you've met,
Nancy,
and Nancy, that's the name. Yeah. And but so then it was kind of crazy. I was just like I was at Merrill-Lynch. I was doing that. We got married, and then we ended up, and then we had our first son, I think you might have met Benny that night too, Benny. And then I ran into Allison. Nancy had started teaching her class. I was going to her class. This is like 2005. So 20 years ago, literally 20 years ago. Yeah. And I always joke the other guy in class, because it was she had 7 people, and I said, "Oh, I'll go to the class, and it'll be like equal scene partners." And it was 6 women, then me, and the other guy was Channing Tatum. So I was I wasn't the most popular scene partner.
Right.
I don't want to. Not the teacher's husband. How about young Magic Mike over there? Soon to be Magic Mike in his heyday, when he was like 22 or something.
Yeah, you were the last guy picked.
I was the last guy on the team picked.
Right.
And he's great. He couldn't be nicer. He's the same guy now that he was then. And it's been wild to like watch him become, like a movie star. But so I was doing that anyway. Then I run into Allison at the farmer's market on Larchmont, and she's like, "What are you doing, Buckley? I haven't seen you in 3 or 4 years." I'm like, "Oh, I'm married. I got a son. I'm at Merrill-Lynch. I'm an adult."
And were you still going on auditions? Were you still trying to?
No,
totally
I hadn't.
Stopped.
It had been totally stopped. and totally stopped. And that had been 4 years, but I had gotten the bug back of being in her class, and I was reminded, like, gosh, I really love to act. I very much liked my time at Merrill-Lynch, enjoyed it immensely, and I mean, I stayed there the whole time I was on The Office. That was actually, I mean, that was my main job, if you will. But so she says, okay, well, give me your card just in case. This is October of 2005. And I said, okay. And then she calls me. She's unbelievable. She's unbelievable. She calls me 4 months later and says, Buckley, I can't believe I found this card. It was at the bottom of a file cabinet. You should come audition. I think you might be the right guy. He's the CFO. It's one day. It's a couple of scenes with Steve. It's The Office. I knew that she was doing that. And I said, okay. And so then I worked with Nancy, and I was just excited to get to do the 2 scenes. And then they hired me. And I think they liked that I was, some kind of financial person. And I've never said that. What's that?
It was just supposed to be one episode?
Yeah. It's just crazy. And I kind of thought, maybe I'll get to do 1 a year or something like that. And then the next year I got to do like 3. And then that was the third season I got to do 3 or 4 even. And then same with the 4th season. That was right before the writer's strike in 2008. And then when it came back for the next season, I mean, it was crazy. I was in like every other episode, like with big storylines and all kind. I mean, which was great, because then that led to a lot of opportunities on other shows, or specifically a couple of movies, because like people in town were watching the show and like fans of the show. So, that was.
And you're at Merrill-Lynch the whole time? Like, do you have clients that are like, what are you doing working here? You're on this.
I have a couple. I had nobody. I mean, I had friends in town who thought it was fun that were also clients. There was only like one client who I had met, and then a year later said, it's funny, I was watching a show the other night and a guy on the show looked a lot like you. And I was like, oh yeah, that is me, funny fluke thing, blah, blah, blah. But then there was a funny thing, a guy who ended up, Kyle Bornheimer is his name. He was we ended up being on this show called Avenue 5 together just recently, this HBO comedy. But at the time he had his own show, or he was the main guy of a show called Worst Week, I think. And we were riding up in the elevator together because as the story goes, he's looking at me and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, oh, that's the guy from Worst Week. I recognize that guy. And he looks at me and he's like, oh, your client here also. And I like, no, I actually, I'm an advisor here. And he's like, well, aren't you the guy from The Office, right? You're the guy from The Office. I'm like, yeah. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, yeah, that's sort of a fluke. Like, this is what I do. And that's just sort of developed into something. And which was kind of funny. He's like, huh? He's just baffled by it. But
yeah, I'm sure.
Did you get clients because people wanted the guy from The Office?
No, because it's funny, and I purposely tried to like really keep it separate. Like when I was at the show, I would not talk about Merrill. I mean, if someone asked me, I'd just say something. I didn't want anybody thinking that like, this guy, he's here, he's trying to like get people's accounts, get them to move their money over, and like I just wanted the writers like to keep writing, like, oh, let's keep him on the show. He's halfway decent. So I certainly wouldn't mention it there, but if asked, I would, answer. But then at Merrill-Lynch, I also wasn't like somebody wants to entrust their financial world to some actor, like some guy who's like, hey, I can't meet up. I got a part. Don't worry about it. The market will come back next year.
Yeah.
No, nobody. So, but it would occasionally come up, but I wouldn't lead with it.
Are you in charge of the family finances, or is the wife in charge?
That's a constant question. You know, I mean, I guess we do it. I guess we do it together.
You make the business decisions because of your Merrill-Lynch experience, or not at all?
No, well, I just have probably a much better sense of it, and it's pretty. I keep it very simple. I'm not out trying to pick stocks, or you know, it's like you got like Apple, you got Berkshire Hathaway, you got some index funds. I mean, it's very simple. You know, I'm not trying to find the next. Sadly, I'm not trying to find the next Nvidia or whatever. That jumped quite a bit, but and it's crazy. She's so busy. I mean, it's sort of that. She's really great at what she does. Consequently, she's in constant demand, and she has a couple of other teachers that teach for her, I guess, for people that either are newer or that she just can't get to. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I look at like who she's coaching on a daily basis, and like I know everybody knows every name. You know, like, oh, it's you know, I mean, some are Channing and Margot and Jennifer Aniston, and I forget. I mean, some could be secretive, but no, like you know, Ariana Grande. She's been coaching her the last couple of years for Wicked, and
amazing.
And coaches, you know, Jennifer Garner, Rachel McAdams. I mean, she's it's just she's great at it. So she doesn't have time.
Yeah, I want to pivot, and the truth is, if either you or Liat, you know, who's very in charge of me, are uncomfortable with where I'm going to pivot, we could edit this whole thing out. This isn't live, but you and I were sitting across from each other, and I was wearing this, and this is where I want to pivot. I was wearing this, and you said to me, right, you showed me yours, I showed you mine, and you showed me yours, and we connected because of that, and what I'm talking about is about the hostages that are in Gaza, and I was so, and then you invited me to your house to an event where Eitan Chitayet, am I saying his name right?
Yeah, I think it's it's Chitayet. Eitan
Chitayet was speaking, and he's the guy of, and by all means, Andy, if you don't want us to, you know, keep this in, we don't have to.
I assume we were going to talk about this.
Okay, good. I deliberately kept some time before I mentioned it, so we'd have other stuff. But you know, you invited us over to your house where he was talking, and he's the guy who's famous from "I'm That Jew." He's that guy. I'm That Jew, and I have this podcast that I do, you know, and I told you I do this podcast with Lauren, you know, and the whole premise of the podcast for us is where movies, TV, pop culture intersects with medicine. So, but I have a small little platform, and I'm always afraid, how real do I get? How goofy do I get? How silly do I get? And do I ever go political? And here you were, someone who is well known for The Office, and you just came out in another big show that Lauren actually watched, episode 1, FUBAR, that we could talk about.
I'm not in episode 1.
I know, that's what she told me.
I know, that's seriously. You're not on that show. And
I watched the trailer. I'm like, Andy said he's on this show. He's lying. So I said to you, I said, wow, you know, and you're not even Jewish. You're married to a Jew. But I said, because of you, I now speak out a little bit more on social media. Not only do I wear this, now I even have a Jewish star. And to some degree, you're my inspiration a little bit. Yes, I'm always constantly afraid that I'm going to get canceled or who knows what. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. And I think it's important now more than ever.
Most certainly. You're that one kid that I was speaking to. You know, they always say, if one kid, you're the, you know, those Oscar speeches, you can be that kid. Well, it's funny. you specifically, obviously, when I wear it a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, I have it inside, like I don't wear it out. Like I was like, wow, you're the first guy I've seen in Los Angeles specifically. A lot of people in Toronto, where Nancy is from, wear it outside. And her, it's a big family, a big Jewish community up there. I always joke, I'm the only, non-Jew at all huge events. Who's the Irish guy? Well, how'd he get in?
Yeah.
And,
you're the Shabbos Goy. Have you heard that term? The Shabbos Goy? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And,
do you know what that is, Lauren?
But I just thought, I'm instead of the Shiksa Goy, right? It's the Shabbos Goy. Is that what that is?
Yeah. On the high holidays, they need someone to like turn on the electricity and whatnot. So they have a non-Jew do it. So he's that guy. You're that guy.
It's funny. We had to, for a number of years, lived near La Brea and Beverly, in a big Orthodox area. And we had a couple of neighbors, and occasionally get asked, hey, can you come turn on?
Oh, you really did?
The stove, like that. Yeah. Nancy got asked more than I did. I think I did it once.
Yeah.
Oh, I did it once. But because you were wearing it outside, I was like, oh wow, this really is great training, to you. And it was just he was coming the next week, I think, and your wife followed him and knew him, and maybe you did also, but I know she did, and that was great. That was really a great night.
Other than me, have you had other people in the business say things to you? Hey, I like what you're doing, or have you turned people on positively to starting to post a little bit? Some of your colleagues and friends. Or?
Yep, both. Like a couple of I noticed a few comments, and then I'll message with someone on. And it's funny how Instagram becomes such a way, and to a much lesser extent Twitter, but it's all primarily Instagram. But just people that I haven't worked with, but like, oh, that's the guy he made that show. Oh, there you go. That's nice that he said that. So there've been a few things like that. It's not like I've worked with them or whatever. But then just people, from like Fleur Hassan, that lovely woman over in Israel, and some of the women who post a lot, and Ari Acker, and who's the guy who owns the Marlins, and so a lot of people like that. I went to high
school with that guy. He was in my sister's grade. Yeah,
he seems like a lovely guy.
Yeah, I think he's a good guy. I haven't heard from him, since we were little kids. But yeah.
But so people like that.
What about hate? Have you gotten hate?
Yes. No. A small handful, and it's not like they're just. And I don't even know if they're people or if they're the bots or whatever. But and it's just that you Zionist piece of whatever. How much they paying you? How much they paying you to say this stuff?
Yeah.
And then hey, you weren't even that good on The Office. You suck. That's which. Yeah. Those are always kind of fun.
Do you ignore that? Do you delete it? Do you respond to it? The hate.
I don't delete it. I think there's been like one direct message I deleted. I was like, I don't want to see that again. But once in a blue moon, I'll respond. I mean, there was one guy who was like, "What do you know about anything, pal?" And I said, "Well, it was just one of those things, and it was early on." And I said, "Hey, look, I'm just a guy like anybody. You don't, just because I'm on some TV show doesn't mean anything about anything. But just to give you some background, I've been to Krakow, I've been to Poland. This was way before I met Nancy." My older brother is also married to a Jewish woman, and I remember so they got married, and it was just one of these things. Like I had miles. I mean, this is going back 35 years, and I was like, "Well, what am I going to do? These miles are going to run out." And I went to Prague, and I went to Warsaw, and I was like, I should see this stuff. Like I don't know anything about this. so it's not like I became a scholar, but I did that, and just being around Nancy's family and friends up there, and you just learn about it, and just a little bit, you just learn a little bit. So like, it's not like I have no thoughts about it. It's not like I have no understanding of it. Blah blah blah. And then I realized, oh my gosh, this could take over your whole life. Yeah. If you're just responding to these things. So not I haven't in many months. I mean, and it's funny. I slowed down. I think around the holidays. I had a hernia surgery right before Halloween, and the guy completely botched it. So I had to slow down. No. No. For anybody watching, Dr. Cohen had a double hernia, I guess, right? Like it was two of them.
I don't remember. I wasn't even there. I had some janitor doing
Once
it.
I went out, somebody, the med school guy did it. But anyway, that's how we know each other. And he did.
I wasn't going to go there. That's all you.
Oh, he told me not to ask. He's good. He's good with confidentiality. I was like, okay, I won't ask.
Well, I'm happy to sing it from the rooftops how great you are.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that.
But so I slowed down a bit during the holidays. I'm slowly getting back. But I mean, I put things up easily on a weekly basis, or sometimes I'll do 2 or 3 in a day. Or what a great guy Shabbos Kestenbaum is. What an impressive kid. He's one of the guys. I started messaging him, and I of course have the benefit of like he knows the office, so he knows who I am. So it's not like just some oddball saying, "Hey, you're keep it going." It's a semi-known oddball saying, "Hey, keep it going, kid."
Right.
But I mean, what an impressive guy. He's like the sharpest young guy on the planet. So I plan on continuing. I was going to try to go to Israel in September, but then I don't know. I can't remember what happened, and then the kids were starting school. And I'm like, all right, I'll go another time. I'd love to do that. I sort of try and figure out when. But
we're going to go. Why don't you come with it? I think we're going to go to Israel like around mid-August. You want to come then?
Possibly. Yeah. I don't know. I'm hoping I'll be doing season 3 of the Schwarzenegger show then.
Nice.
But who knows? Who knows?
I actually heard it's now called the Buckley Show. No.
So you've gotten my email. That's
nice.
I'm trying to make that happen. Netflix hasn't quite. Oh, I'll find this crazy picture. I mean, it's nuts. I have this giant. I call it a giant beard.
Oh, yes. I think that's worth it. That is impressive. I didn't expect that.
Maybe we should post that as our, as our teaser for this episode.
As our guest.
What is that from? Is that a beer commercial?
That's it. Well, there you go. That's probably a slightly better.
Nice.
So you see the gray really comes out when it.
That is
when
good.
It's longer.
So just to go back just a little, so you quit Merrill-Lynch right after The Office finished the series?
Nope.
Or, okay.
It was right around the same time. Yeah. So the show ended. We filmed the last episode it was right around the same time. Filmed it in March of 2013. It aired in May of 2013. And I think my last day at Merrill-Lynch was sometime in December 2012. So right around that time.
That's amazing.
And I hadn't really been in the office that much the last couple of years because I was also lucky enough to be on another show, that I was a regular on. I was never actually a regular, which is a whole different pay structure, on The Office. I was mostly like a guest star, and then I got a couple of as a recurring character contracts, but it led to all kinds of things. So that was the real benefit of it. But I was on this teen drama called The Lying Game, which was a sister show
Mm-hmm.
Do you know it? To Pretty Little Liars was the big hit. Yeah, that was.
I went through your IMDb and I was like trying to look for, because this show kind of has a medical slant, and I was like, I bet he's played a doctor, and I found out in that character,
Dr. Ted Mercer.
Yeah.
Phoenix's plastic surgeon of the year. I think there was an episode where I won that. And it's, it was great. It was a really fun show. It was a great show. And a ton of fun to get to do. And that was, we filmed that in Austin. So I would actually, and our young son had basically just been born 6 months before when Sanders, his name, when that show started. And so I was going back and forth every week which is not actually that difficult. It's only like 2.5 hour flight. And I have great friends in Austin. So I was like living above their garage, like in the garage apartment, and then I'd fly home and get to hang out with him on the weekends. But so it was around that time that it was Buckley, why don't you should just, like, you haven't been in the office in a couple of years. Your partners have been doing all the work, and so they just sort of took over. Okay. And
you got fired?
And I basically got canned. Yeah. You're a compliance risk, Buckley. You got to get out of here.
Yeah.
People, if they find out.
So
the whole time I was on The Office, I was at Merrill-Lynch.
That's amazing. And
then
you also told me
sidelining as Dr. Ted Mercer.
Nice.
Phoenix plastic surgeon of the year.
Did they actually have you in that show doing any surgery? Did you get to go in the OR?
There was one scene where I put on the coat, and I have the stethoscope around my neck, and I'm talking about something. I couldn't tell you what. I'm sure something very basic. And and like one of the kids had an accident, and I was like, to the girlfriend or the parents or something, he's gonna be okay. He got a lateral such and such,
Yeah.
I don't know. And a lateral tear,
Yeah. And you're a plastic surgeon with a stethoscope? Already that's totally wrong. I don't even think plastic surgeons know what stethoscopes are. That's one of the reasons why we started the podcast.
Well, when we remake it,
yeah,
I'll advise I'll become the technical. You can become the technical consultant.
There you go, Lauren and me. Yeah. So you also do these motivational talks, right? They're so I'm not Tony Robbins, like it's, but they're kind of lighthearted, but yes. And I talk a little bit about myself and just that's 5 minutes of it, but it's primarily about the work ethic of, and there's jokes peppered in throughout. Like I'm not the guy that, has some great disability, but I still climb Mount Everest. I'm blind, but I climb Mount Everest. Like I got on a hit TV show. Luckily, I didn't get fired. Like I kept my head down and was good enough that they're like, we'll keep. But yeah, and it's great. I love it actually. I'm halfway decent at it. I think. I mean, I'm trying to get better at it, and I bring in, as I started to say, like Steve Carell, his work ethic, his preparation, his leadership, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Like I sort of tell stories of the different people I've gotten to work with, Hugh Laurie, and now Arnold, and they're all different leaders, and they all have different skill sets that work, but they all have sort of that unifying, win-win. They're positive energy. They're communicative. They want to hear ideas. They're collaborative, and they're always prepared. Yeah. Is there a book or a TED Talk that's going to come out of either of that stuff?
That would be really fun. It's funny. I have a buddy of mine who's like, "Buck, to write a book?" And I'm like, "Well, all right. I'll get to it. I feel like
Yeah.
I have the imposter syndrome when it comes to that. It's like, but I don't know. A lot of people have books, but it's more, I just enjoy it. Go in. It's fun talking to people. And it's fun meeting the people afterwards. But I mean, I have I have a little bit of a message, which is the main thing is just about attitude. And, that's the number one thing you can be in charge of. And, always have that positive mental attitude. I referenced Norman Vincent Peale, and it's generally the over 50 crowd that gets that, like, I read that book. Anybody younger, you got, I guess, Tony Robbins is probably the big guy. But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Could you give that stuff to your boys, or they don't want to hear that from you? Any of that kind of stuff?
They don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, my younger son, he's just having fun at school, and teenager, sort of coming into being a teenager, and he's a really lovely kid. And then my older guy's 19. He wants to act, so he's studying acting now. And apparently he doesn't. I mean, he takes Nancy's advice, which is good.
Yeah.
I don't really have any great advice. Start at Merrill-Lynch. That worked for me.
Hedge funds. Yeah.
That's the ticket.
Yeah.
But
it's funny
about getting.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
My daughter Liat, who you met for a sec, always kind of teases or jokes around with me. She's like, "Dad, you're always about life lessons," and my kids roll their eyes, about that. But you're the guy with the life lessons,
Well, he listened. He listened when he was younger until we hit about 13 or 14, and then there was like a year in there where all his buddies were watching The Office, and I got a little street cred back,
right?
Because I could walk across middle school or high school, quad or whatever they call it, and it's like, hey, that's Buckley's dad. But it wasn't like he would listen to me.
Yeah. Have you done anything with him yet?
What's that?
Have you been seen with him or anything? Have you acted with him at all?
There's a short a friend of his wrote like a little short movie that he wants me to do, which I mean, I guess we will at some point. I mean, like some little thing that will be fun. It's pretty funny, actually. I don't know when we were I was like, oh, I gotta get past these two surgeries. I had my hip replaced also, for the folks at home. That's the second surgery. And while he was in there, he fixed what Dr. Cohen botched. So now that all that's done, maybe we'll do it like in April or something like that.
That'd be cool.
But it's I don't know. I think he has great potential. We'll see. That's one of the things. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Marlon Brando was like the hardest working actor, they would say, and Robert Mitchum, and I mean some of the Duke and all those guys, how prepared they were. And I see it. I mean, Schwarzenegger knows everybody's lines. He's the guy so prepared, it's great, and it's really, and he has such a great sense of humor. Like there was one day I had I literally had one line in a scene, and I bungled it, and he's like, "Andy, you got one line." I was terrible. My imitation is terrible. He's like, "Can you?" And he has a great sense of humor. He can dish out. He can take it all because everybody's always imitating him.
Yeah.
That's nice. So season 2 is coming out soon, right? I'm only on the second episode of the first season, but I'm going to watch it all.
I finally show up in the second episode, and you'll sort of laugh at how does that guy become the picture you saw in the second season. But it comes out in May or June, I think, the end of May or early June, and then. I don't know how that works. Hopefully, you find out if you get to do it again or shows. Like the only reason I'm on the Schwarzenegger show, the guy who's the showrunner, huge Office fan. His name's Nick Ventura. Yeah. Just a great guy. And he had a show called Scorpion, which was on CBS for a number of years, about a bunch of young geniuses. And I ended up doing like 10 or 11 of those as like Richard Branson sort of, like guy, or, Elon Musk, a billionaire genius who always has some super high level problem and the geniuses would solve it. And, but my first day on the set, he's like, we're here, right? And I was like, I assume it was my audition. And he's like, no, that was pretty mediocre, actually. I'm a huge Office fan. I just want to talk to you about The Office. Like, oh, okay.
Well, I don't think you give yourself enough credit, because you have fantastic chemistry with Steve Carell. And yeah, I think you're brilliant on the show. And I'm excited to see more of FUBAR and everything you do. Any other, are there any actors that you haven't worked with that you want to work with? Or what do you want to do?
It's really fun. I've gotten to do so many fun things. This Avenue 5 show we got to film that in London. There was an HBO thing from the fellow that created Veep. That was his big hit. And I got to do episodes of that, which, that's going back 8 or 9, maybe even 10 years. I don't know. I was in the first season of that. And she's magnificent. Julia, that's the thing. Like Hugh Laurie's phenomenal. I've really gotten to work with some phenomenal people. And I don't know. It's funny. Of course, I'd love to work with Robert Duvall, Gene Hackman, all the great guys that I'm fans of. Sean Penn, Daniel Day-Lewis, all those guys. It's funny. I was used to be, and he's obviously a little older now. Alan Alda would have been a ton of fun, just because I was a fan of his. Not that there was not that we'd have chemistry or whatever.
Right.
I'd love to work with Steve again. He's just a delightful guy. That's the thing. Everybody on that show was great. I don't know whatever happened to Krasinski. I thought he was going to have a career. He's just disappeared. He's disappeared.
That's great. That's great. What about movies? Are there any movies that you're excited to see, or that you've recently seen? Or
I'm excited to see Paddington in Peru, because the first 2 Paddington movies are phenomenal. It's funny. They're kids' movies, but they're so great. They're so charming.
You're joking, right?
I'm not.
No, people keep saying. I keep hearing people say that, so I have to check it out. I've never seen any of them. So
is Hugh Grant in it again? Wasn't he in one of them?
Who?
Hugh Grant.
He's in the second one. Yeah, right. Nicole Kidman's the main bad guy, bad woman in the first one. Then Hugh Grant is the main bad guy in the second one. I've heard the third one is not as good.
Kind of like Godfather 3.
Exactly. So I was like, it still has some good points, but so we'll probably see. I'm going to see that this weekend. I bet we'll see it.
You're amazing and inspirational for so many reasons. We still need to have you guys over for Shabbat dinner.
I know, and I got my eyes real high. Johnny Daniels, nice. I think I'm wearing upside down right now. Gave me that. Would be we'll do that.
Yeah, when my girls are home from school, we'll do that. But thank you so much for joining us. This was amazing. I'd love to have a part 2 one of these days also, but just schmooze more and hang out more, because I thank you for everything.
All of that sounds great. Part 2, schmoozing, hanging. And I thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you, Lauren.
Big fan of you.
Thank
you. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. What a treat. This is so fun.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Doc.
Talk soon.